just because you're going through terrible things in your life, that doesn't mean it's the end of your life. It could be God preparing you for greater things. And the tribulation that you're going through is just your training course. So, my favorite book in the world is the Holy Bible. That's where I feel all the wisdom in the world that you need is contained within there. And one of the verses the Lord Jesus tells us is to be wise as the serpent. So in my days, I've studied many books. And these three books, the Kabbalion, the Emerald Tablets, and the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius. So this one was written supposedly thousands of years ago, right? But and this one also, the Roman Emperor. And this one in the late 1800s, early 1900s, by the three initiates. And how does that relate to what I'm telling you? So one of the Hermetic principles is rhythm. I'll read this to you. Everything flows out and in. Everything has its tides. All things rise and fall. The pendulum swing manifests in everything. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. Rhythm compensates. What that means is the scale of your misery could be the scale of your happiness, because the pendulum swings back and forth, back and forth. And some of what this book teaches is to control your happiness. Don't get too overly excited, because the scale of your excitement could be the scale of your misery. And so you think about the Lord Jesus, how he was always steady, and he was able to control the winds and the seas and steady everything. And so for us, it's important to have a steady heart, but that's impossible for, your average person to do, including myself. But what I'm trying to convey to you is that for every dark day, there's a brighter day coming. Or I will rephrase that. For every dark night, there's a brighter day coming. For every rainy day, there's a sunny day coming. And the more misery you go through, the more you able to truly appreciate your happiness. There are scriptures that talk about, that there were two people. One had 50 pence owed to the debtor, another 500 pence owed to the debtor. And the debtor, frankly, forgave both of them their debt. And the Lord Jesus asked his apostle or disciple, which one of the debtors you think will love the creditor most? And he said the one who was forgiven 500 pence, because he had the greater debt. And so because of how much debt he had and how much was forgiven, the love that he had, or the appreciation for what was done, was greater. And so likewise, you'll have a greater appreciation for your happiness when you survive your misery. June is Men's Health Month. And, please comment on, is there a Women's Health Month? I've never heard of such a thing, as far as I'm just coming to the Men's Health Month. But, as a veteran, I know about the 22 a day. And that was a number that I thought was absurd, that 22 vets would, take that route each day. That's horrible. And, come to find out even further, over 600,000 men choose to give up each year, and I had a friend that posted something that broke down how many that equated to each day. And that number was something It was terrible. And I just want to reach out and say, you're going to go through terrible times, but think of it as preparing you for something greater. In the animal kingdom, it's 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 a dreadful place, man. When you look at the savannah in Africa and what the wild dogs do to animals, what the lions do to animals, what the all the predators, how they consume their prey. It's man, it's sickening. And I grew up watching Discovery Channel, watching, Pride Week and Shark Week and so on and so forth. And so us being sheep, we got to know that they got predators out there looking to devour us and eat us alive. And we have to be knowing that we sheep amongst wolves, and the enemy is a lion walking around seeking to whom he may devour. And so that, when things feel insurmountable, like you ain't gonna be able to make it, you can't have the car you want, you can't have the house you want, you can't have the girl you want. Know that there's a season for everything. I done been up and I done been down, straight up. And one of the things that Hermes taught, that he didn't ascended from the pit 1,000 times over. And I always tell my partners, don't, I'm gonna shake back, and if I don't, it's the end. But I'm not gonna quit. And so I tell you this to say that, if you're going through something and it seems like you can't get past it, God can heal all wounds, repair all relationships, right? And then those relationships that he take away from you, you got to understand that it's for your benefit. And we being rebellious children of God, when our Father is trying to steer us on the right path, keep us from sticking a fork in the electrical socket, keep us from burning ourselves, we rebel against that, and all we want to do is stick the fork in the electrical socket, but all it's going to do is kill us. And some of the relationships, some of the things that we, lust after, is debt. And it's just our Father trying to take it away from us. Know that, when the Lord Jesus Christ walked the earth, foxes have their holes, but the Son of Man had not a place to lay his head. And how could the disciple be above his master? So when we got things and we got access, know that it's a blessing that then been bestowed upon us. But the Lord of Lords, King of Kings, he didn't have a home. He didn't have a chariot. He didn't have, a place to lay his head. And he was the most blessed above all. So when we don't have things, we need to look inside and say, thank you. One of the guys I was listening to, listening, and he said something, profound that I really liked. He said that you need to be happy in your blessings, and also happy when I ain't gonna call it cursing, but it's possible, the Lord, fear him that destroy both body and soul, right? And so even when you in your tribulation, that's the word I was looking for. When you're in your tribulation, you need to find joy in it. When you read through the scriptures, the apostles, they did their best to find some joy in their affliction. The Lord Jesus asked the cup to be taken away from him, but in the end, it's nevertheless not my will, but thine will, right? And that's the Father which is up in heaven. So do you some studying, and try to know that everything has its season, right? Ecclesiastes is one of my favorite books. Everything has its time and its place. There's a time for peace. There's a time for war. There's a time to love. There's a time to hate. There's a time to give. There's a time to take. So sometimes it may seem that, nothing's going right for you. Maybe you had a rough life the whole way through and it ain't never been easy. Ask yourself, did you put your trust in God? Did you let his word be the light in this dark place for you? Meaning if you saying I pray every day and I do this, but you don't follow or observe what he tell you to do and then wonder why you're in tribulation. Well, it's clear. He told you if you don't follow and do what he tell you to do, it's going to be consequences. But you got to understand, even Job, who was perfect in the eyes of the Lord, he lost all. But it was returned to him 100-fold. So even if you're doing all the right things, you got to be tried and refined. And you say you gotta rejoice, because you know that in this next world, in the kingdom of heaven where you're going, they got a place for you. You got a great reward, and the Lord gonna say, well done, good and faithful servant, if that's what you're doing. But as it is written, like you could be cursed on this land and then cursed for all eternity. When I was a child, they used to talk about, I have to make another video because I know most people ain't gonna make it this far in, but they used to tell us one of the blasphemy and suicide was the unforgivable sins that, you go to the dirt for, to hell for. And I through my diligent study of the Bible, as you can see how many videos I've put out